let's talk about one of the biggest shifts happening in software development right now, serverless computing. Seriously, if you've ever found yourself wishing you could just write your code and have someone else worry about all the infrastructure, well, you're definitely in the right place.
I mean, just pause and think about that for a second. What if all the hours you spend provisioning, patching, and just maintaining servers, what if that time just vanished? That is the huge promise behind serverless. And we're going to see how it's not magic, it's just a totally different way of thinking about how we build things.
So why is everyone so excited about this? Well, to really get it, you first have to appreciate the problem it's solving. And that problem is the constant, never-ending headache of actually managing servers.
Does this sound familiar to you? You build this amazing application, you're super proud of it, and then, bam, you're immediately sucked into this whole other world of managing the machines that it runs on. It's a cycle that pulls you away from what you actually want to do, which is build cool stuff.
And look, this isn't just some simple to-do list. This is a constant drain on your time and your energy. You've got provisioning, patching for security vulnerabilities, trying to scale up and down for traffic spikes, and just constant monitoring. Every single one of these is its own deep, complicated task. It's basically a full-time job that has nothing to do with making your app better.
Okay, so to solve all that pain, this idea of serverless came along. But let's be honest, the name itself can be a little confusing. So let's just clear that up right now.
Here's the textbook definition, but the most important part, the phrase you really need to focus on, is without having to manage servers. That's the whole game right there. It's not that there are no servers, it's that you don't have to deal with them. You focus on your app, and the cloud provider handles all that mess underneath.
This is the perfect, no-nonsense way to think about it. Yes, of course there are servers running your code somewhere in a massive data center, but they're not your problem. You don't patch them, you don't scale them, you barely even have to think about them. It's all about abstracting that hardware completely away.
All right, so let's get into the nitty-gritty of how this actually works, especially on AWS. The service that is the beating heart of all of this is called AWS Lambda.
You can think of a Lambda function like a little specialist you hire for one specific job. Maybe its job is to resize an image. It does that one thing perfectly, and then it's gone. And it's stateless, which just means it has no memory of what it did before. Every time you call it, it's a completely fresh start. It just sits there, waiting for a call to action. And that right there leads us to the most important question in the entire serverless world. If these little bits of code are just sitting there waiting, what actually kicks them into gear? The answer is simple: events. Basically, your Lambda function gets a tap on the shoulder from an event happening in another AWS service. So an HTTP request from a user could hit API gateway, and that triggers your function. A new photo getting uploaded to an S3 bucket, that can trigger it. You can even have a change in your DynamoDB database be the event that runs your code. These services act like the trigger points for your whole application. Okay, theory is great and all, but seeing how it works in the real world is where it all starts to click. So let's walk through a super common example to connect all these dots. Okay, let's break this down. Step 1, a user uploads an image to an S3 bucket. Simple enough. Step 2, that upload action creates an event. S3 sees this event and automatically triggers our Lambda function. Step 3, the Lambda wakes up, runs its code, and, say, resizes that image into a smaller thumbnail. And finally, step 4, the function saves that new thumbnail into a different S3 bucket. See what's missing? There are no servers to manage, no scaling to think about. It just works.
Now look, just like any technology, serverless is not a magic bullet. It's not the right answer for every single problem out there. It's incredibly powerful for sure, but it's important to understand the deal you're making, the amazing benefits you get, and the trade-offs you have to accept.
So the benefits are huge. Obviously, no server management. The scaling is completely automatic. If you get 1 million requests, it just handles it. And you only pay for what you use, down to the millisecond. That means no more paying for idle servers, which is a massive cost saver. But there are trade-offs. You might hear about cold starts, which is a little bit of extra delay the very first time a function runs. There are limits on how long your code can run, and because you're building on specific services like Lambda and S3, it becomes harder to just pack up and move to another cloud provider. That's what people call vendor lock-in.
Okay, so knowing all of that, where should you actually start? Let's look at a few use cases where serverless, and especially AWS Lambda, is just a perfect fit. These are fantastic first projects. Image thumbnail generation, we literally just walked through that one. It's a classic for a reason.
Automated data processing is another great one. Like, maybe you want to clean up a CSV file the moment it gets uploaded. And of course, building simple API backends using API Gateway and Lambda is an incredibly popular and powerful pattern. These are great places to dip your toes in.
And that really brings us right back to that first idea we started with. The true power of serverless isn't just about the cool tech. It's about a fundamental shift in your focus. It frees you up to spend your brainpower on the thing that actually matters, the code that delivers value to your users. So the real question is, what amazing things could you build with all that newfound freedom?